I have a question for the audience. How many people here are interested in writing for television? How many people are interested in writing for comics? How many people are interested? Well, I'm going to ask individually. How many people are interested in writing a fanfic or writing sort of like novels or short stories? So let's do this slowly so we can see hands. How many people want to write for television? How many people want to write for comics? You have the home court advantage here.
For you.
How many people want to write like fanfic? And
Already do.
and how many people want to write, professionally short stories or novels? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can raise your hand as many times as you want. This isn't like a choice. You just keep your hand going the whole time. Okay, that tells us sort of how we should sort of focus. And if you're interested in writing in any format, I would suggest reading as much as you can in that format. If you like comics, read comics and see how they're laid out on the page and everything. But yet more importantly, try and get your hands on some comic scripts so you can see what those look like. Because if you want to write a comic, you need to see how a comic is constructed on paper.
Yeah. If I was merciless, I'd use that as a lovely plug for what I've got on my table, but I won't. I won't even mention it.
That's okay. I won't mention the fact that I have television scripts for anybody who's interested in writing for television. Won't do that.
I mean, generally in comics, there's two main approaches to writing a script, and you've got the full script method versus what's become known as the Marvel method, and they're quite distinct. I mean, as the name suggests, the full script method is where you're breaking the issue down page by page, and you're breaking each page down into a series of panels, and you're describing as precisely as necessary what's in each panel, and that can go as far as talking about the point of view, like in a TV program or movie, the angle of attack in terms of looking at the scene and the panel, and then of course the dialogue, and that's the approach I favour, and it may be because of my control freak tendencies, but it's because I get the best understanding of how how the story can proceed, and then the so-called Marvel method is very much different to that. It's you'd write down for the artist roughly what you want to happen on that page, or even if it's a fight scene or something, you'd say, okay, well, this is 3 pages of this confrontation. You'd sometimes break that down into panels, but usually you wouldn't. You may single out a particular shot that you'd like, but generally it's left to the artist. And then you'll probably put a few paragraphs, not of the finished dialogue, but of by the end of this page or these pages, then these things need to be said at some point. The artist would then sort of attack that and turn that into the pencil pages, and then it's only when those pages come back that you'd put the dialogue in as it should appear on the page. And the advantage of that method is that you can often hone the dialogue. You can present the dialogue in a way that's much more synthesized with the picture on the page, which best reflects the action before your eyes. But there's no right or wrong way. There's lots of people that do one, lots of people that do the other, and as I say, I prefer myself to do the full script method. But I think John Barber, since so-called season 2 of Rebels in Disguise, has with Andrew Griffith done the Marvel style. So go back and have a look at issues 1 to 27 of Rebels in Disguise, and then 28 and onwards, and see if you can sense any difference in the way the stories are told.
Yeah, neither one of them is better than the other. I mean, masterpieces have been written in either format. Marvel has done stories that are just epic and fantastic, and if you look at the stuff that Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman have written, if you read their scripts, they read very much like the comics look. And what the artists add is this incredible style and incredible sort of energy that you get. But they're both equally valid. And if you're a writer and a control freak, you want to do the script version. That's how I would prefer doing it, because control freak. And that's the thing also with animation. if you're writing a live action script, you're writing it in what's called master scene, where you say, interior or exterior, like the basic location, and then you describe the location in very broad terms and say who's in the scene, and then you have the dialogue. In animation, if you do that, you have not done your job. It's the sign of an amateur in live action writing to go to every single shot and every camera angle and talk about who is on screen and whatever, and how the camera pans, and what you cut to and what you zoom in on. I mean, it's a rank amateur thing you don't direct from the page. It's like you don't do that. If you don't do that in animation, you haven't done your job. So what's kind of awesome is when you write for animation, what you get back is exactly what you envisioned. And it's really gratifying to write a story and to see the story come back exactly as you wanted it to, or in many cases far better because they've plussed things and made things wonderful. I did an episode of Transformers Prime called Flying Mind, not my favorite title, and there was a scene in a control room, and I imagined it being sort of like, shaped kind of like this, and what came back was this environment that was just these giant circular walls and this floor and all these different kinds of layers, and I was just amazed at what they had given me. And I was just so in animation you get all these wonderful surprises that come from the various set designers and directors and board artists. And I'm sure that happens with you. Sometimes you'll get artwork back and you're like, wow, I was not imagining that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, isn't it, when you, because at the beginning of both our processes, it's a very I was going to say isolating, that's the wrong word, but it's a very solitary process, and it's in your head, and you're putting it on the page in whatever format, and then you sort of release it, and then I think more so in Bob's world than mine, the amount of people that will work on bringing that to life, and they'll often add something to it. I was talking last night to somebody about a recent issue of More Than Meets the Eye, and there's a scene where Nautica pats Ravage on the head, and he says, touch me again and I'll kill you. But and actually out of all the lines of dialogue in that issue, that's the one that's quoted back to me the most often, and that happened at the very last minute, just before the issue went off to print, and it wasn't scripted like that. The script talked for Nautica to be in between Rewind and Ravage. She's sort of addressing both of them because Rewind's able to do this thing, but Ravage doesn't have the hand, doesn't have the manual dexterity to do it, so he's unable to help, and he wouldn't want to help anyway. But I mean, she presumes he would because she's just met him, and and when the script, Alex Mill normally will show me the pencil pages as they are produced. But in this instance, we were up against the deadline, and so I didn't see that particular page till the issue was being circulated to the various creators for a final check. And so I saw that page, and Alex had added the details of Nautica sort of stroking him on the head, and it looked really cute. But it certainly changed. The dialogue didn't fit that anymore. And then when thinking about it, I thought to myself, well, Ravage would hate that anyway, that sort of tactile thing. So we added that line at the last minute to almost to account for that unusual gesture. So and it's, as I said, it turned out to be, for a lot of people, one of the memorable panels in that issue. But that wouldn't have happened had the script not transformed after it left my computer and came back with the letterers and the colorists and the pencilers and someone having worked on it. So
I love surprises like that. It's like, that's where the magic happens,